Hi, and welcome to another video by Jim the Car Guy. Today we have a 2002, it's a Subaru Outback. We're going to be replacing just the front struts. This particular car does not come as a complete assembly. I prefer doing the assemblies on them, especially when you get to a car that's a 2002. So if they're available for the car you're working on, change the assembly. The assembly comes with the bearing plate, the spring, and the strut. In this case, I do have to use the spring over, and I have to also use the bearing plate over again too. So, all right, I'm going to bring you in there. I'm going to show you what to do. I'm going to tell you what you should not do, and we're going to get this job wrapped up and out the door. All right, so let's get up here. I did the left side already. We're going to go to the right side now, and we're going to start on the right side. So let me bring you over. I'm going to show you what tools you're going to need, and then we're going to talk about what we're going to do, and then we're going to do it. So come on, let's take a walk. Okay, this is an example of what you're going to need. You're going to need a bungee cord or a piece of rope or something to tie the knuckle up and out of the way, just as a safety precaution so the axle doesn't pull out of the the inner tripod. You're going to need a ratchet. The longer the ratchet, the better off you are for additional leverage. A couple of extensions, a few sockets. This one here is really just a couple of sockets. I think it's like 12 and 13 millimeter. You're going to need an air gun. If you don't have an air gun, you're going to need probably a 1/2-inch breaker bar to get some bolts loose, a wrench to hold the other end of it, and of course your new strut. All right, now like I was saying, these struts are under pressure, so you really don't want to bring any kind of heat or anything into it. I think it actually tells you right here, do not heat or open because they're under pressure. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to come in here, we're going to spray up these bolts right here so they don't break on us. You can see it's a little rusty. So we're going to take out this bolt here, and that holds the anti-lock brake cable out of the way. This is the hydraulic cable that brings fluid into the master cylinder. We're going to remove that bolt as well. And then we're going to come over here and we're going to use an air gun to air gun off this one and this one. I'm going to use the air gun today. I'm not going to do it by hand. I know I always try to, but I'm not going to do that today. I'm actually working injured today, so we're going to use the air guns to get this off. Next thing we're going to do then is we're going to come up on top, right up over here, and you see these 3 bolts here, here, and back over here. We're going to take these 3 off, and then we're going to pull the strut out of the wheel well. Now, as you can see, this strut is leaking. You can see all this road debris that's on there, so it's leaking a little bit. The other side was much worse. So, all right, let me get set up, and we're going to get started. Okay, now, like I said, first thing we're going to do is we're going to spray everything up with some penetrating oil, just so it doesn't break. All right, then we just take out these 2 bolts right here. I think they were, if I'm not mistaken, I think they're 12 millimeters. All right, now don't lose these because they do not provide them with the new struts. You'll need to use them over again. We just put that off to the side. Same thing on this one here. And this just pulls off to the side like that. Now, normally I would take these off by hand here and show you how to do that, but I'm going to use the air gun in this case. All right, so cover your ears. And I'm going to shoot these off. Now what you're going to do is you're going to shoot this bolt off on this end over here, the nut, and you're going to hold it just on this end so it doesn't rotate. Now these are actually two different bolts that are in here. I'm going to show you the difference in a minute. Okay, these are actually two different bolts. This one is actually, as you can see, this one is for doing the wheel alignment. You see how this one is actually a little bit, it's not perfectly round. It's like oval shaped. That's so you can do the alignment. All right, so you have to make sure this goes back in the correct location, and this is the nut and washer that goes on here. The other one, we're just going to take it and pull it out too, and I'll show you the difference. You see how this one is thick all the way through, and that one is actually a little bit thinner. So this one you have to make sure you put that back in the top. This one goes in the bottom. That washer needs to go with this bolt. Very important. Okay? Now, the reason I said to get a bungee cord or a piece of wire or whatever is because when you pull this out of the strut itself, it's going to move in here where the axle goes into the transmission, and you don't want to take a chance on that axle popping out of the inner tripod. Not that it's a big deal, you can get it back together, but sometimes they're a little bit of a pain in the rear end to do that. So just hang it on there, saves a little bit of the problem. All right, so we're just going to push in on the strut a little bit and just rock it. And then what I do is I just take a bungee cord and I just tie it back. Just to keep slight pressure on it. All right, just like that. It keeps it from pulling out all the way. This little movement is not a big deal, so that you don't have to worry about. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go up on top, up here, and we're going to shoot out these bolts up top right here. So let me get set up with that, and we'll continue. All right, you know what? I'm not going to show you this because I got to lower the car down. We're going to take out this bolt and this nut and this nut totally, and this one we're going to leave it hanging by one thread only. Okay, so let me do that, and I'll show you how that goes. Bring you up here, I'll show you what I mean. All right, you see, don't lose these because we are going to have to reuse these because we're not changing the bearing plate. And you see how this one bolt is just holding it right in here? We're going to leave that on there because now we're going to push it up from the bottom, and then we're going to reach up and take that off. So we'll continue. Okay, so we're just going to push up a little bit, reach up on top, take the bolt with the nut off. Don't lose it, we need it. And then we'll take the strut out of the car. Making sure that you don't damage the cable when you pull it out. All right, so let's bring it over to the press right now, and I'm going to show you how to do the pressing. Okay. Now, let me just tell you this one. I had one of my customers just come in now. Comes in, he says to me, he's got a slight leak in his radiator. It's an Infinity, I might add. You know those are plastic radiators, right? I went out, saw that, looked at it, he says to me, where do you think the leak is coming from? There was so much epoxy all over this thing. It was probably 1 inch thick all around the top seam of the radiator. He put this stuff on there. And what was his question? Can you fix it, or do you have to replace it? You can't make this stuff up, for sure. All right, back to work. All right, so this is our press that we're going to actually be pressing the strut together. And the way we're going to do it is you take the strut and you put it in the machine. Now, I might add, you'll see a lot of guys, take a look here. You see a lot of guys on YouTube telling you that you can You can change these springs over without using this strut machine. Believe me when I tell you, don't play around. You're going to lose your fingers, you're going to break pieces of your body, and that's in the best possible case. If you don't have this machine, or a machine that's meant to compress strut springs, do not do it. Take it to a local repair shop, pay them a few bucks to switch the stuff over, take it to the store you bought your struts from, have them switch it over for you. If you don't have the machine, don't play around, all right? Okay, so here we go. All right, you put your strut in the machine like this, you bring the pieces around like this. Now this one you're gonna notice, I'm gonna be putting this in a little crooked. And the reason I'm putting it in crooked is this. I'm not going to hold the top here with this tool. This is not going to be going on there like that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go like this. Let me set it up and I'll show you. So now that we have it loose here, now we can take this apart. The reason I have that like that is because if you hold this up on the top and you put these pieces here on top of this lower part is going to slide off and you're not going to get your strut back in from the bottom. When you take a pair of pliers like this, just put it on here because sometimes when you hit it with the air gun, sometimes this spring will rotate. So we'll just take this cover off right now. It just covers up the top here. All right, cover your ears. Heard the change right there, so you knew it came out. This we throw away, we don't use it. This is now loose, so if you had to change your bearing plate, now is when you'd want to change your bearing plate. We're just going to take this out. We're going to take this here off, and this piece here comes off. And we'll take our new strut. Now let me show you the new strut. Okay, now you remember the new strut has that wire on there, right? So what you're going to do is just pull it down, and you'll see that that's coming up already. See how it's pushing up? He's got pressure on it. And you see this one is collapsed already. So we know that that strut is no good. All right, we put our piece back like this. This over the top, like that. Now I know you're tempted to use the old bolt, or I should say the old nut that came with it. Don't do that. Use the one that comes with it. They give you a new one. Make sure you use the new one. So this is trash. All right. We're just going to stick this back through. And you want to make sure, you see how this has an indented area right here? You want to make sure your coil spring lines up right in there. First your washer, then your nut. Now, shoot that down. Now remember what I told you about that spring. You want to line this up over there. If it moves a little bit now, don't worry about it. All right, nice and tight. Now we'll just line that spring up, and then we'll just lower the let it up. And that's it. Okay. You do put this back in, the piece that came out of it. It just pushes down on top like that. Let me just show you this. Okay. Remember I told you about lining it up with that indented area? That's the indented area. And you see how this coil spring connects into it? That's very important that that goes in there just the way it is. You want to make sure it's in on the bottom here and here and here. So everything is nice and tight. All right, let's get back over. We'll reinstall this. Okay, we're going to get back over to the car over here, and we'll throw this back in the car, and we'll wrap it up and get it out the door. So let's continue on the car. Okay. All right, now the next thing we're going to do, we're going to put our strut back up in there. We're going to catch the strut up on top here first before we do anything on the bottom. So we're just going to put it back in the way it came out. We're just going to leave it rest here for 1 minute while I go back up top to get it lined up. Okay, now the top is all connected up. It's not tight. We're just going to leave it in there loosely, and now we'll put this back in here. We're going to lean in slightly to hold this in. Take off our bungee cable or wire, whatever you're using. We're going to put our bolts back in, and you want to put them back in the same way you took them out. This one you know is on the top, so like that. And we're not going to tighten it yet. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to tighten up the bolts. We're going to hold it in the back with the wrench, and we're going to tighten it with the air gun. Now, if you don't have an air gun, you just have to tighten it very tightly with your 1/2-inch drive wrench sockets. All right, now you will have to get the wheel alignment reset on this. The alignment is very important. It has to be reset because that top bolt makes the wheel move in and out a little bit, so very important that you get the alignment reset. All right, next thing we're going to do now is we're going to reconnect those 2 bolts that we previously took out. Now, I'm going to tighten these up by hand. You can tighten them up with an air gun if you have it, or if you have an electric impact gun, you can do it with that also. next thing we're going to do now is we're going to go up top. Everything down here is caught. Let's go back up on top now. We'll tighten that up. Okay. Now you can tighten these down. Now I usually tighten them in fairly tight. I usually tighten them in fairly tight with the air gun and then just snug them with the ratchet just to make sure that they're tight, which they are. All right, okay, that's it, struts are in. All right, make sure that when you try to put that back in, that inner tripod didn't pop out. If it did pop out, you'll just need to push it and play with it to get it to pop back in. All right, so now we have everything tightened up. We have the bolts on the bottom here tight. We have the 2 cables tightened on here, and up top we have all of the 3 bolts up there tight too. All right, this side is done. The other side is done. Now we're going to do the wheel alignment, and we'll get this car out the door and on to the next one. I don't know if I'm going to have time to film it, but I got to do a water pump and timing belt on this too. We'll see what I can film or what I can't. All right, as always, thanks for watching. Any questions or comments, you need to talk to me about anything, send me an email. I'll be more than happy to talk to anybody about anything. As always, thanks for watching. See you on the next one.